Have you ever noticed that your social phobia doesn't shrink when you avoid social situations? On the contrary, it grows. With every cancelled meeting, every avoided conversation, every opportunity wasted out of fear, you feed the very thing you should be dissolving. It's a cruel paradox. The more you run, the more fear chases you. The truth no one tells you about social phobia is this: the problem isn't out there, in the judgmental eyes of others. The problem is in the unintegrated shadow you carry within you. Every person who intimidates you is just a mirror reflecting the parts of yourself that you reject and fear. Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, discovered that our most paralyzing fears are born from what he called the projected shadow. Everything we deny in ourselves, everything we consider unacceptable in our personality, doesn't magically disappear. These rejected parts become an unconscious force that sabotages our social life, creating anxiety, shame, and isolation. Social phobia is the shadow of internal judgment that you project onto the outside world. When you feel that tightness in your chest before a conversation, when your mind races with catastrophic thoughts about what others will think, when you rehearse every word 3 times before speaking, you are not reacting to the present. You are reacting to the ghosts of your internal tribunal. But there is a fundamental difference between those who remain prisoners of social phobia and those who break free. It's not courage. It's not self-esteem. It's not breathing techniques or positive thinking. The difference lies in the ability to integrate the social shadow, to embrace the parts of yourself you have been rejecting. Today, you will discover the 4 infallible ways to deal with social phobia that no one ever taught you. These are not superficial strategies to mask the fear. They are gateways for psychological integration that dissolve social anxiety at its root. They are paths to transform your biggest obstacle into your greatest teacher. The first way will show you how to stop feeding the inner monster that devours your confidence. The second will reveal the secret to turning others' judgment into fuel for your authenticity. The third will teach you how to use your biggest insecurities as keys to your liberation. And the fourth will open the door to a genuine social presence that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. You no longer have to be a hostage to fear. You no longer have to live in the invisible prison of social anxiety. You no longer have to choose between being authentic and being accepted. There is a way to be completely yourself and still connect deeply with others. But first, you need to stop lying to yourself about what's really happening when social phobia strikes. You need to see the hidden pattern that keeps you trapped. You need to recognize the shadow that has been controlling your social life without you even realizing it. What Jung discovered about the dynamics of social projection completely changes how you can understand and overcome your anxiety. Get ready to see your social phobia with new eyes. Get ready to discover that your greatest weakness can become your greatest strength. Stop for a moment and be brutally honest with yourself. How many times in the last week did you cancel plans because the anxiety was stronger than your will? How many times did you stay home scrolling through your social media feed while your friends went out without you? How many times did you rehearse a simple conversation in your head dozens of times, only to not have the courage to say anything in the end? As you read these words, your mind is probably already making excuses. It's different for me. My case is more complex. People don't understand. These are the voices of the shadow trying to keep you in the comfort zone of familiar suffering. Because there is a truth your phobic mind doesn't want you to discover. You have become an accomplice in your own imprisonment. Observe this destructive pattern. Every time you avoid a social situation out of fear, you are sending a message to your unconscious that the danger is real. Every time you hide behind a social mask to be accepted, you are betraying your own authenticity. Every time you judge yourself in advance for what others might think, you are feeding the very inner monster you should be taming. Do you recognize this vicious cycle? Fear, avoidance, shame, more fear. Anticipatory anxiety, isolation, self-recrimination, amplified anxiety. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The more you feed the phobia, the stronger it gets. The more you run from your social shadow, the more it pursues you. The brutal truth you need to face is this: every person who intimidates you, every look that paralyzes you, every judgment you fear, is a projection of the parts of yourself that you do not accept. When you feel that someone considers you inadequate, it's because a part of you agrees with that assessment. When you imagine they are criticizing you, it's because your inner critical voice never stops attacking you. As long as you continue to project your shadow onto others, you will remain a prisoner of social phobia. As long as you continue to believe the problem is out there, you will be powerless to change it. As long as you continue to run from the rejected parts of yourself, they will continue to sabotage your social life through anxiety. But there is a fundamental difference between you now and you after integrating these 4 ways of dealing with social phobia. Right now, you are controlled by the unconscious patterns of your projected shadow. Afterward, you will become the conscious observer of these patterns, capable of dissolving them at the root. Right now, you react to fear. Afterward, you will respond with authentic presence. Right now, you avoid discomfort. Afterward, you will use it as fuel for your growth. Right now, you are a victim of your phobic mind. Afterward, you will be the master of your social experience. Are you ready to stop being an accomplice in your own prison? Are you ready to see social phobia for what it really is? A symptom of the unintegrated shadow. Are you ready to discover that your greatest vulnerability can become your greatest source of authentic connection? Because what you are about to learn isn't just about overcoming social phobia. It's about using social phobia as a gateway to your deepest individuation. To understand how to dissolve social phobia at its root, you need to comprehend its real psychological origin. Social anxiety is not a manufacturing defect in your personality. It is not weakness. It is not inadequacy. Social phobia is the symptom of a specific psychological process that Jung called the projection of the shadow. Imagine your psyche as an internal tribunal that never rests. In this court, there is a relentless judge who evaluates your every move, every word, every gesture. This inner judge is formed by all the critical voices you have internalized throughout your life. Demanding parents, harsh teachers, cruel peers, a society that punishes vulnerability and rewards perfection. As a child, to survive emotionally, you learn to exile certain parts of yourself. Perhaps your spontaneity was considered inappropriate. Perhaps your sensitivity was seen as weakness. Perhaps your authenticity was punished with rejection. So you created a social persona, an acceptable mask, and threw your unacceptable parts into the shadows of the unconscious. But the shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It becomes an autonomous force that sabotages your life through symptoms. Social phobia is the shadow screaming to be recognized and integrated. Every anxiety attack is a disguised invitation for you to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. The mechanism of projection works like this. Everything you deny in yourself, you project onto others. If you reject your vulnerability, you see others as predators waiting to attack your weakness. If you deny your imperfection, you imagine that everyone is looking for your flaws. If you exile your authenticity, you feel you need to perform to be accepted. Social phobia is a dysregulated alarm system that treats every social interaction as a mortal danger. Why? Because on an unconscious level, you believe that if your rejected parts are discovered, you will be banished from the human tribe. It's a primitive survival reaction that makes no sense in the modern world, yet it controls your social life through fear. Here is the transformative key. When you integrate your social shadow, when you embrace the rejected parts of yourself, the projection stops working. You no longer need to fear others' judgment because you have stopped judging yourself internally. You no longer need social masks because your authenticity has become your greatest strength. Integrating the social shadow doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming whole. It doesn't mean eliminating all insecurities. It means stopping the fight with them and starting to dance with them. It doesn't mean never feeling anxiety again. It means transforming anxiety from an enemy into an ally, from an obstacle into a teacher. The 4 ways you are about to discover are not techniques to hide your fears. They are gateways to integrate your psychic totality. They are not strategies to impress others. They are paths to be impressed by your own courage, to be vulnerable and authentic in a world that punishes these qualities. When you understand that social phobia is the shadow asking to be integrated, everything changes. Fear ceases to be your enemy and becomes your guide. Anxiety ceases to be an obstacle and becomes an invitation. Vulnerability ceases to be your weakness and becomes your superpower. The first infallible way to deal with social phobia is to master it through a technique I call disidentified observation. This is the most powerful tool to break the vicious cycle of social anxiety, learning to observe your fears without becoming their hostage. When social phobia strikes, your phobic mind completely hijacks your identity. You stop being a person who is feeling fear and become the fear itself. I am anxious instead of I am feeling anxiety. This total identification with the symptom is what keeps you prisoner. Disidentified observation works like this. The moment you feel social anxiety emerge, you stop and internally declare, "Interesting. I am observing fear arising within me." You become the scientific observer of your own experience instead of being consumed by it. You create a space between you and your fear. Practice this mantra when anxiety comes. I am not this fear. I am the consciousness that observes this fear. Thus feel the difference. In the first case, you are imprisoned. In the second, you are free to choose how to respond. The second way is the inverted mirror technique. This tool dissolves social projection at its root, turning every person who intimidates you into a disguised teacher. Every time someone triggers social anxiety in you, ask yourself, what part of myself that I reject am I seeing in this person? If someone seems overly confident and it intimidates you, perhaps you are rejecting your own natural confidence. If someone seems critical and it paralyzes you, perhaps you are projecting your own inner critical voice. The inverted mirror reveals that all social phobia is a disguised invitation to integrate rejected aspects of yourself. When you stop projecting and start integrating, people cease to be threats and become mirrors of your own psychic totality. Use this revolutionary question. If this person who intimidates me were an aspect of myself that I need to integrate, what would they be trying to teach me? Notice how anxiety transforms into curiosity, how fear dissolves into discovery. The third way is the strategic vulnerability method. This technique uses your greatest weakness as your greatest social strength. Social phobia teaches you to hide your imperfections, to perform perfection to be accepted. But strategic vulnerability does the opposite. It uses your insecurities as bridges for authentic connection. Instead of hiding that you're nervous, you share. I'm a little anxious, but I'm happy to be here. Instead of pretending you know everything, you admit, I don't know much about that, but I'd love to learn. Instead of masking your sensitivity, you offer it as a gift. That really moved me. Authentic vulnerability is magnetic because it's real in a world of masks. When you stop trying to impress and start to connect, when you trade perfection for authenticity, something magical happens. People feel safe to be real too. Strategic vulnerability isn't about oversharing inappropriately. It's about using your imperfect humanity as a bridge to the imperfect humanity of others. It's about discovering that your biggest insecurities, when shared with courage, become your greatest powers of connection. These first 3 ways already begin to dissolve the prison of social phobia. But there is a fourth way that completely seals your liberation, that transforms you from a victim of social anxiety into a master of authentic presence. The fourth infallible way of dealing with social phobia is the most transformative of all: presence anchored in the authentic self. This technique not only dissolves social anxiety, but transforms it into a force of genuine connection that is independent of others' approval. Anchored presence works through a simple but revolutionary principle. Instead of seeking external approval to feel valid, you anchor yourself in your own internal approval. Instead of trying to please to be accepted, you become interesting by being genuinely yourself. Here's the secret. When you stop desperately needing others' validation, you automatically become more socially attractive. People feel your authenticity like an energy field. They sense that you aren't trying to sell them anything. You aren't performing to impress. You aren't begging for acceptance. Anchored presence is built on three fundamental pillars. First pillar, internal approval. Before any social interaction, you connect internally with these truths. I am enough exactly as I am. My worth does not depend on the opinions of others. I have something unique to offer the world. You anchor your self-esteem in your own recognition, not in the recognition of others. Second pillar, genuine curiosity. Instead of obsessing over what others are thinking about you, you flip the focus and become genuinely curious about them. What does this person have that's interesting to share? What unique experience do they carry? How can I contribute to making them feel valued? Curiosity dissolves anxiety because it shifts the focus from fear to connection. Third pillar, offering value. You stop going into social interactions like an emotional beggar asking for approval and start going as someone who has something valuable to offer. Your presence, your unique perspective, your ability to listen, your courageous vulnerability. You shift from "what can I get" to "what can I contribute?" When these three pillars integrate, something extraordinary happens. You develop what I call the magnetism of authenticity. People are drawn to you not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Not because you have no fears, but because you don't hide behind them. Anchored presence completely transforms your social experience. Conversations stop being tests of adequacy and become dances of mutual discovery. People stop being potential judges and become possible friends. Social situations stop being battlefields where you can be rejected and become gardens where authentic connections can flourish. Here is the daily practice to develop anchored presence. Every morning, before any significant social interaction, dedicate 5 minutes to connecting with your authentic essence. You breathe deeply and declare, "Today, I will show up as who I am, not who I think I should be. I will offer my genuine presence as a gift. I will be as interested in others as I would like them to be in me." This fourth way completes your transformation. From someone who suffers from social phobia to someone who uses their social sensitivity as a superpower for connection. You don't completely eliminate fear. You transform it into a force in your favor. Now you have the 4 infallible tools. But knowing is not enough. You need to integrate these ways into your life through a specific practice I'm about to teach you. Knowing the 4 ways is not enough to transform your social phobia. You need a specific integration practice that we call social shadow work. This is a 21-day journey that dissolves the unconscious patterns of social anxiety and builds new programming based on authenticity and presence. The integration happens through 3 progressive phases. Phase 1. Conscious observation, days 1 to 7. For 1 week, your only task is to observe. Every time you feel social anxiety, you stop and apply disidentified observation. You don't try to change anything. You don't force any transformation. You just observe and take notes. Questions for daily investigation. When did the anxiety appear today? What automatic thoughts came up? What parts of myself am I rejecting in this moment? If I were my own therapist, what unconscious pattern would I observe? Keep a social shadow journal. Write 3 lines every night. What you observed, what you felt, what you discovered about your projection patterns. This phase develops the muscle of witness consciousness. Phase 2, courageous experimentation, days 8 to 14. Now you begin to experiment with the techniques. Use the inverted mirror on every person who triggers anxiety. Practice strategic vulnerability in low-stakes conversations. Start developing your anchored presence. Daily challenge for the 2nd week. Every day, do 1 micro-exposure to social fear. Greet a stranger. Ask a question in public. Share an authentic opinion. Admit an imperfection. Small acts of courage that break the pattern of avoidance. A fundamental question for this phase. If I were absolutely brave for just 5 minutes today, what would I do differently socially? Then do exactly that. Phase 3, authentic integration, days 15 to 21. The 3rd week is about embodying the 4 ways as your new, natural way of being social. You stop thinking about the techniques and start living them. Daily anchoring ritual. Every morning, 5 minutes connecting with your internal approval, cultivating genuine curiosity about the people you will meet, defining how you will offer value through your authentic presence. During this phase, you practice what I call courageous transparency. Instead of hiding your internal processes, you share them appropriately. I'm practicing being more authentic in conversations. I'm learning not to take things so personally. I'm discovering that my sensitivity is a gift, not a flaw. The key to this phase is to apply the transformative question in every challenging situation. If my social phobia were my teacher, what would it be trying to teach me right now? Use the anxiety as a compass to discover which parts of you still need integration. Social shadow work works because you stop fighting with your social phobia and start dancing with it. You stop trying to eliminate it and start transforming it. You stop seeing it as an enemy and start recognizing it as a disguised guardian of your authenticity. At the end of the 21 days, you will not be a person without social fear. You will be a person who has transformed social fear into social wisdom, who has used their sensitivity as a bridge to deeper connections, who has discovered that their greatest vulnerability was, in fact, their greatest superpower. The journey of integrating the social shadow never ends. It deepens, it refines, it expands. You become eternally curious about your projections, eternally courageous in your vulnerability, eternally present in your authenticity. You are no longer the same person who started reading this script. Something fundamental has changed in your understanding of social phobia. You now know that the anxiety you feel is not about others judging you. It's about you rejecting parts of yourself and projecting that rejection onto the outside world. You can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer hide in unconscious ignorance. You have seen the patterns. You have recognized the projections. You have discovered that your greatest weakness can become your greatest strength. You have awakened to the truth that social phobia is a disguised invitation to your deepest individuation. You now possess the 4 keys to social liberation. Disidentified observation, which transforms you from a victim of fear into a conscious witness of anxiety. You are no longer controlled by the symptoms because you have learned to observe them without identifying with them. The inverted mirror, which dissolves your projections and transforms every intimidating person into a disguised teacher. You no longer fear others' judgment because you recognize it as a reflection of your own internal judgment. Strategic vulnerability, which uses your imperfections as bridges for authentic connection. You no longer need to perform perfection because you have discovered that your imperfect humanity is magnetic. Presence anchored in the authentic self, which frees you from dependence on external approval. You no longer beg for acceptance because you have found approval within yourself. You are now the observer of your social shadow, no longer its victim. You are the integrator of your psychic totality, no longer the fugitive from your rejected parts. You are the authentic presence that needs no masks to be accepted. But knowing is not being. Understanding is not transforming. You need to live these discoveries. You need to practice social shadow work. You need to have the courage to leave the invisible prison of social phobia and enter the world as who you truly are. The journey that begins now is not easy. You will feel fear. You will want to retreat. Your phobic mind will try to convince you that it's safer to remain hidden. But now you know that the safety of the prison is an illusion. The only real safety comes from the freedom of being authentic. Every time you choose vulnerability over a mask, you will be choosing growth. Every time you anchor in your internal approval instead of seeking external validation, you will be choosing freedom. Every time you use your sensitivity as a bridge instead of a barrier, you will be choosing connection. Your social phobia is no longer your problem. It is now your teacher. Your anxiety is no longer your enemy. It is now your guide to discovering which parts of you still need to be integrated. Your fear is no longer your weakness. It is now your compass for authentic courage. Comment on which of the 4 ways most impacted your understanding of social phobia. Share your deepest revelation about the patterns you recognized in yourself. Like if you felt the courage to look at your social shadow without running away. Subscribe to continue this journey of integration and authenticity, because what you discovered today is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you live these discoveries in the real world, with real people, in real situations. You are no longer a prisoner of social phobia. You are now the author of your own liberation. The journey of integrating the social shadow is just beginning. Allow yourself to be who you really are. The world is waiting for your authentic presence.